Hello, Samaneri Jayasara. I am very, very happy and honored to meet you.
That's nice. Nice to meet you too, Erica.
Thank you. Samaneri Jayasara is a Theravada Buddhist nun. She lives in a hermitage in Australia, and she has a prosperous YouTube channel with many recorded videos, meditations, but especially words of masters of all traditions. She kindly, generously decided to literally give voice to, also followed by beautiful musical tracks. And this has been evidently very inspiring for a lot of people. Me myself, I came to know about your YouTube channel a couple of years ago in India. I actually met a Theravada Buddhist monk, and I was going through something a bit challenging, and he sent me like four of yours.
Kitty? Oh, right.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you
Uh,
remember his name?
Um, Actually, he was not a monk at that time. He had been a monk for many, many
Oh,
years. I
right.
don't know because he used to call this Edward. Edward? Uh,
We may not know each other anyway. I just thought it was interesting if a Theravadan monk had
yeah,
given you a book.
exactly, exactly. And yeah, so it was very inspiring for me to come to
Interesting.
know this.
Ah,
Yeah.
there you go. Great.
And so, first of all, how shall I call you? Can I call you Sister Jayasara or
You
some?
can. In the tradition that I'm in, we're often referred to as Ayah or
Ah, yeah,
Venerable.
right.
Yeah, Ayah's fine. It just means Venerable Sister. So Ayah or Venerable is the
Yeah,
English.
yeah,
Yeah,
perfect. Ah, yeah,
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
So, first of all, how did your spiritual journey begin?
I always get asked this question. I think a lot of people in spiritual circles get asked this question, and it's a question that's I think kind of problematic because to answer it accurately because it feels like when one comes in, well, it did for me, that when one comes into the world, one feels like one has come into a spiritual journey that's continuing, you know. Um, and what happens, I think at a certain age, I'm more conscious at a certain age of feeling some of that joy and wisdom closing in or over oneself, probably around adolescence, when you start to become more self-conscious and more egocentric and more confused about the world. So it's like I kind of feel like as a child there was just a natural joy and spirituality without having any conceptual language for it or ability to express it, but just a natural joy and connection to nature, to animals, to people, just to being. And then come adolescence, it starts to get a little darker and a little bit more confusing. And if you're lucky to get through adolescence, then you just get more and more fixed in an adult point of view, and you have to kind of break out of that. So I almost feel like we come into the world as spiritual beings and we get conditioned to be humanoids or capitalist slaves or whatever system we're conditioned into. So even as a young teenager, though, I was fortunate to come into contact with spiritual teachings and spiritual masters through yoga and just things that were offered to me to listen to, like Krishnamurti, and then my own conscious interest developed when I was probably 19 and started reading Buddha Dharma and various spiritual teachings, all traditions. And then, it kind of feels like a full circle coming back to rediscover what we are naturally, but it just gets so occluded by all these confusions and ideas, primarily ideas, and then different emotional responses that are all conditioned into us. So I guess I was fortunate to kind of go through that dark adolescent period, a bit of adulthood, if you consider 19, 20 adulthood, and then just feeling that urge again to really find out what the truth was or is. And so, yeah, I suppose that's how it kind of happened for me, just coming into contact with teachers and teachings and continuing to follow that.
And how did you decide then to become a nun?
Again, it wasn't a very conscious process for me. It's not like, right, I've got this plan or these goals or these steps. It was really just a response of the heart. And I think when I did start, I was always interested in spirituality and practicing as a lay person and doing retreats and so on. But there was always something within me saying, I feel like I just want to step out of the world, the work world. I wasn't drawn to having a family or children, and something within me naturally just felt drawn to the monastic life. But it wasn't a very conscious process. It was just a kind of intuitive sense that this is the right fit. And I was fortunate to be able to go to Amarawati in early 2000s and spend some time there as an anagarika or an 8-precept nun, and then come back to it after I left there for a while. Come back to it again about 8 years ago or more. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I know it's not always easy to become a nun in many traditions, but also in the Theravada Buddhist tradition. Was it for you a smooth process, or did you meet as a woman choosing the renunciant life any obstacles, any challenge?
I think, I'm very conscious of those obstacles within Theravada Buddhism and the problems that many women face in seeking higher ordination or bhikkhuni ordination. For me, I'm a kind of, like most people, unique. But I haven't been drawn to higher ordination because I quite like the 10 precept framework for me, and it enables us to live more independently in this hermitage. Whereas if we were bhikkhunis, there's so many more restrictions and rules you have to face, and we'd have to have an anagarika, and we couldn't cook for ourselves and so on. So it works well for me, and again, it suits my natural temperament, I suppose. And so in becoming firstly an anagarika, it was smooth enough sailing. There were a few hiccups along the way. And then coming back into it as a 10 precept nun or a Samaneri about 8 years ago or so, that kind of was very serendipitous too, because we went to Santi Forest Monastery and there was just an opening to be able to, and we were being encouraged also by the senior nun there to take up robes again. So there was a big door opening actually. So quite rare to get that opportunity twice in life. And so it was fairly smooth sailing. But if I was interested in bhikkhuni ordination, it would be a whole nother story of coming up against a lot more challenges and closed doors and views and opinions within my tradition, within other traditions. And to be honest, I'm not interested in dealing with that aspect. I'm sure you're aware of it if you've spoken to different... I notice you've spoken to Jetsuma Tenzin Palmo, and she's very, up against that and conscious of that. But my support is really with women to do that, to go for it. But personally, I just kind of like to take a back step and keep out of the fray too. I'm not so institutionalized within Theravada Buddhism, I wear the robes and I've been schooled in that from a very young, from 19 to 20. But in terms of the institutional life and the religious life, I'm not interested in being part of that in a big way. So, and you can see that by my channel. Hey, I'm just it's an open book of different religions and traditions and masters, and that could raise a lot of horror for certain people. So that I dare read Mahayana texts or something. So
Yes.
bit of a rebel, really.
I imagined. In fact, it's pretty unique because also the Theravada tradition can be
Very conservative, yeah.
yeah, can be conservative. And so even more, I really appreciate and also listening actually to your recordings because they are all interpreted by your voice, of course. It almost feels really that all these different traditions are actually the same voice in a way that is speaking with creativity in infinite different ways to reach literally everyone. Can you tell me something about what feels so important for you in this interreligious approach, and keeping, I guess, keeping in the heart the love for mystery without boundaries or without being particularly attached to one form or another?
Yeah, that's a good way of expressing it. It's nice that you hear it as one voice speaking the same truth, and that's what it is. When I read any of the genuine masters, before I read it out loud, I might be just scanning some text I've found or happened upon, and I feel that they're speaking the truth, and that goes straight to the heart. So, and it doesn't matter what color robes they're wearing or not wearing, or what tradition they're coming from, what country, what gender. It's like when you hear the Dharma, the truth spoken, and it's coming from someone who's realized it, for me, it resonates very powerfully. So that's, then I'm just drawn to want to read that master's teachings. And this is even coming through sometimes a lot of different translations and centuries down the line, it's so that always amazes me. So I just continue to just be open to what comes my way, and obviously I have certain spiritual masters that I'm really inspired by and will continue to read and have created a playlist for, like Longchenpa or Nisargadatta or Ramana Maharshi. But then sometimes I come upon someone I've never heard of, but if they're really authentic, there's something within me that can really hear that, and so it's good to know that it's being communicated, and it is. It's just that it's the truth coming. You say coming through one voice, but it's the truth is one coming through all these different voices, and I just happen to be a channel for that. So, and if people are hearing it that way, then that's all good. That's I guess what the whole point of it is, to recognize that and move away from dogmas and sectarianism and ideas that we're the only right religion or we've got the best guru and all this nonsense, and just to hear the truth and expressed in myriad ways, which is part of the beauty of it, isn't it? The different languages, the different words, but they're all just words pointing to the moon. So
Yeah, it's almost like an antidote for against attachment, getting too attached to one's own way, because that is an attachment that rise pretty easily, as I've noticed in the spiritual world regarding the tradition.
Yeah, absolutely. And it doesn't mean to say that you don't focus on one tradition and value it. But if you have this kind of myopic view that we've got the only right tradition, whether it's Theravadan or Advaita or whatever, and that everybody else is speaking nonsense, then you just attach, as you say, just attached to your view, and you're quite deluded by it. So, and then it becomes religion. It doesn't become true spirituality.
Yeah, it's not liberating anymore.
Not at all, no.
And so being open-minded, those doesn't, of course, prevent us from following one certain tradition or approach. Can you tell us about the importance of sticking to a path? Let's say it's like marrying one tradition, but recognizing that also all the other brides are beautiful, kind of thing.
That's an interesting analogy. Sorry, what was the question? I got distracted by your brides. Or your beautiful brides. Because it started to sound like polygamy to me.
No, it's not polygamy. It's like sticking to one. So I choose one path. I remain. The importance of.
But seeing the beauty in the others, yeah.
Yeah, and seeing the beauty in the other, but marrying one journey. Let's say marrying a practice and a journey, and.
Yeah.
What's the importance of that? Like, do you think we can be open-minded and, let's say, eccentric in the spiritual world, or is it important to choose?
I like eccentric, yeah.
To choose a path. What's your take on this?
It depends entirely on the individual. I mean, we're all so different, aren't we?
Yeah.
And that's the thing, even within spirituality, some take the path of wisdom, some take the path of bhakti or devotion, some take the path of service and so on. And similarly with, some people just want to focus entirely, and I'm not saying that they're narrow-minded, but that just it works for them just to be very focused on their own teacher or tradition or practice, and it can take them all the way. But for other people, it might feel a bit suffocating. I think for Westerners especially, where maybe we're a bit fickle, but we're also very interested in learning from so many other traditions. And speaking of conditioning earlier, one of my conditionings was that I studied comparative religion. I was and so I've always had this interest in what the Hindu tradition's about, what the shamanic tradition's about, and so on and so forth. So it was no surprise that I would come into Theravada and also be open to learning from others and seeing the beauty in it all, as you saw. But it's not for everyone, and that's okay. Whatever works, really. I think that's the thing.
Mm. Yeah. I also saw that you dedicated a section. Well, there is a section that comes out with all the recordings of teachings from Anandamayi Ma, Santa Teresa, Vajrayogini, Margherita Porese, Sumpu Air, teaching from the ancient nuns. So it's a brilliant collection. Wisdom is, of course, beyond gender, and the truth is beyond duality. What can you say, if anything, about the spirituality of women?
Yeah, so you were referring to my playlist of Women of Wisdom. Yeah, I created a specific playlist so that women didn't disappear into the masses of the men's voices.
Exactly.
So what can I say? Well, I can speak as a woman in this in this form, in this human form. I've had a female experience, and so I know what it's like to come up against certain attitudes about women in spirituality or in any walk of life. I know what it's like to have that sort of conditioning in a Western culture. So what can I say? As you said, truth transcends gender, but we also recognize at the relative level there are differences, and women bring certain strengths and insights that men often miss out on, or haven't developed strongly. So it's really important to bring that balance back, and you're probably aware in the Tibetan tradition, and I was really quite happy to learn this, coming late into learning about Tibetan Buddhism, but that the female is always represented as the one of wisdom, the aspect of the female. And then the men have that within them. We both have male-female kind of energies, but the woman represents wisdom, or female represents wisdom. I think in reading some of the female masters, what I've noticed is, it's hard to put into words, but there's a certain voice that comes through, a certain energy that's compassionate, but it's not this kind of wussy compassion. It's quite a power, it's quite a fierce compassion, and an ability to really cut through something that I haven't heard sometimes that comes through the male teachers. And so when I learnt that in Tibetan Buddhism the female is often represented as the wisdom aspect, and there's so many dakinis, and they're quite kind of mysterious, and they often choose to go into the shadows. It makes a lot of sense when I feel that female energy coming through those voices, that there's it's certainly a power that's not acknowledged or consciously made something of in our culture, and probably maybe in some cultures, I don't know, certainly not in Western culture. And that's why there's so much repression, I think, and fear of the feminine, and so many instances of misogyny and just wanting to keep women down, because there's a force that I think comes through within the feminine expression of truth, embodiment, that's quite rare. And I'm still kind of exploring it, as you can probably hear the way I'm even articulating it. I'm not that clear about it even within myself, but I'm sensing it more and more as I'm exploring some of these female teachers that I'm having to search a lot harder for, as you can imagine, but they're there. And so when I happen upon one, for instance, I've just discovered the Mahasiddha Dakini Sukhasiddhi and Naguma, and they were both only two of 84 Mahasiddhas within the Tibetan Vajrayana tradition. And they're absolutely awesome what they say, just cutting through, clear, uncompromising. But apparently Naguma was she wanted to be in the background, in the shadow, and she was doing her stuff quietly, which I think a lot of women do. They're not looking to be the big guru out there and attract a whole lot of followers, and I don't think we have a natural inclination to put ourselves forward and promote ourselves, at all. And I think that's partly conditioning, but partly I think our nature is just, we're quite more content not to be the center of attention all the time. And just I'm speaking for myself, and I don't know if that's a a female aspect, but so even you inviting me, I would often say no to interviews. I get quite a lot, but then I saw your background and what you were doing, and I realised, we whinge about women, and where are all the women? Because I would easily go, no, I don't want to, and I often go, no, I don't want to. So I made an effort to say, I'm going to, maybe we need to hear women's voices.
Thank you.
We need to hear women's voices, because we are in the shadows. Sometimes we choose to be in the shadows, and I think there's perhaps a good reason for that, and it's multi-layered. But I think women's voices are coming more and more to the fore, and it's interesting, perhaps in the next few months we'll have a female leader of the most powerful country in the world, and a woman of colour, and that. So, things are changing. So my kind of rambling around that is more to say there's really something quite powerful, unexplored, unknown within the female psyche and conditioning. And for some reason, there's a lot of fear about that. And that's not only men fearing women, it's women fearing their own power, I think, or other women's power. And that's why you have a lot of misogyny coming from women. You know, it doesn't all come from men, as we know. So what are we afraid of? I don't know. Let's keep exploring that. Why are we so afraid of women? Why do we need to put them down so quickly and readily? You know, it's fascinating. So that's something for you to explore in your discussions with other spiritual teachers of the female gender. But for my part, in meeting some of these masters on the page and then connecting with them in my heart, the female ones, there's an awesome power that's just, you know, some of these teachers have touched me in ways that I've never been touched by the male, you know, in terms of being touched in the heart and held, and a certain confidence and unconditioned love, I think. And sorry, I'm going on a bit, but I think one of those reasons is that I had a very powerful unconditional love relationship with my own mother. So I think that gets, you know, triggered, or you know, I'm reminded of that when I feel that in other spiritual masters who are female. So yeah, interesting area, and you could write a whole thesis on it, I'm sure. Quite interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting. I am also, you know, since I started, I'm also really trying to. I feel there is this uniqueness of regarding the wisdom of women, or like the strength of women in the spiritual, when they connect, you know, spiritually, and they align and with the truth. There is something very powerful and unique, but I also cannot really, I don't know yet, of course, I don't know yet, and the exploration is still, I feel like, in the very beginning.
Great. Yeah, that's right. And that's obviously why you've been drawn to this project and exploration. So it'll be really, you know, for you personally, it'll be really powerful to go through that, to explore that, and also to share your insights with the audience, with the world, you know. So it'd be great.
And also I'm noticing that there are so many more you know, women really that are dedicating their life to the divine, more than we could think of, more that we know of, that's for sure. But there are actually plenty, you know, like as you were saying, like in the shadow, they are doing it.
Yeah.
So it's beautiful.
Exactly.
Nowadays, something completely different now. Nowadays, there is a lot of talking about the law of manifestation or attraction, you know. This new age, let's say, they speak about you cannot manifest anything if you are aligned with God. You can have your dream job, a big house, meet your soulmate. So, but we never heard the great sages of the past talking in this way. If you align with God, you will get the house of your dreams. What's the core of spirituality that we shall never forget? What is the ground of any authentic inner search?
Well, I think in relationship to that, the core is, especially in terms of what the Buddha taught, is to let go of grasping anything, because all those law of manifestations, and I'm not saying it's wrong to have a nice house or a good job, but often it's rooted in desire and egoic kind of, you know, egoic wanting, and it's all about me wanting to be better, faster, more good looking, more powerful. So yeah, it's the opposite in true spirituality. It's letting go of that stuff. And as I said, it doesn't mean you don't earn good wages or have a nice house, but it's always investigating where this stuff's coming from. And if it's just coming from desire, it's just dukkha, it's just suffering. So let things come, and the irony or the paradox is that when you let go of stuff, of wanting stuff, that's when things often come into your life. If it's me always thinking that I'm using my will to get it and my visualizations and my power, yeah, we can make it happen, I suppose. Not always. But I've always found that when you let go, things just come into your life naturally. And then you don't care either way if they come or they don't come, You're happy either way, but it's more, I guess it's more about just flowing with life, allowing whatever comes. You make the effort perhaps to achieve something, but without a level of clinging and attachment, it's much more peaceful. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But not clinging to outcomes is the key.
Yeah, that's absolutely important. Yeah, because they are actually talked of as spiritual practices. That's what hurts me a little bit, because those are something else. They are not. I wouldn't call them spiritual practices.
Well, I think everybody's at different stages of development too. I think those laws of manifestations and visualizations, people can sometimes find a certain degree of clarity and empowerment that they feel more in charge of their life than not. So there can be positive outcomes, but if people are going deeper and deeper, then they'll find that those things have, the material outcomes have less and less meaning, and they stop chasing that. But it doesn't mean they end up in poverty or without a job. It just means they see, they see the truth in those things. Those things just come and go, and we can't take any of it with us. And so we contemplate the deeper truths of impermanence, of the death of the body, that things in and of themselves don't bring us happiness. That's not where happiness lies. So why would you spend all your energy chasing after, I don't know, $100,000 or $1 million or the best looking woman or man that you want? Why would you chase after those things when you see the truth? But if people start from that and then find that they go deeper, it can be a springboard. That's where they're at.
Mm-hmm. And for who doesn't know, how would you? What is the Dhamma?
What is the Dharma? Well, the Dharma is often translated, it's a Pali word, it's also a Sanskrit word, but I'll speak from the Dharma with the double M-A. The Dharma means the truth of the way things are, it's an ultimate reality. So, and then of course there's Dharma spelt with a small d, which is referring to everything and anything, all phenomena are Dharmas. But the Dharma that the Buddha taught is the truth of the way things are, pointing us to the ultimate reality. So those Dharmas of manifestations, of jobs and soulmates, and they're all Dharmas, but they're all Dharmas that come and go. They're conditioned Dharmas, and if we cling to those things, there's only one way they're going. There's only one way this body's going. So if we cling to that, we will suffer. That's just the only guarantee. And this is what the Buddha was pointing to with the Four Noble Truths. So the truth of the way, he was pointing us back to the unconditioned truth, that which isn't born and doesn't die, and isn't part of the conditioned realm, the phenomenal realm. And that Dharma is always and everywhere present, but we're missing it. This is what I was saying at the beginning of the interview. I think as a child I was more connected with that reality. And then all the other stuff came, you got to be a good student, you got to be a good friend, you got to be a good looking girl, you got to be successful, and all those dharmas came in. And then we cling to those as being who and what we are, and we miss the unconditioned Dharma, which is always within us, but it gets occluded by societal conditioning and our own karmic momentum and so on.
Beautiful. And one last question maybe about the world right now and all the challenges that are, of course, humanity is facing, global warming and wars, and we know all of them. How can we face the challenges of the present time with a courageous mind and with an open heart?
Well, I mean, that is what the practice is about, isn't it? It's about waking up to our own fears and reactions to the world and understanding how we view the world as something out there. And there's a relative truth in that. There is a kind of a world out there. But if we're turning inward and understanding that the Dharma, the deepest Dharma, then we see that the world is actually created in here. And it's not, we're not separate from, there's not an in and an out. There's just an experience happening within, and we're creating our own worlds and our own, particularly our own perceptions of the world. So at one level we can say, yes, the world is kind of entering it has been for some time, a fairly dark, ignorant, deluded phase. We see a lot of wars and suffering and greed, hatred and delusion, etc. And this was prophesized and spoken of anyway by a lot of the masters. And in Hinduism it's known as the Kali Yuga, as you're probably aware, having travelled in India. And it has certain energies. One of those energies is that the female form of Kali is kind of dark and hidden, and I'm not an expert on that, but I've gained some understanding of that energy. So that's one way of approaching the world, of looking at the darkness. So the light has to come from in here. We have to turn the light around, as they say, and discover the truth is always here. That's never changing. That's never truly hidden. It's just that there's a lot of confusion in the world that's making it harder for people to realize. But that's what we have to realize. Having said that, there's a lot of benefits when we go through a lot of dark nights or dark periods, is that it forces us to, they say the light becomes stronger too. So perhaps that's what's happening. But I don't like to talk about, that at that level. I just take on my own practice and see what I need to look at, where I need to shine a light, and keep going and offering what I can offer. And I've been, blessed to be able to do this sort of Dharma service, offer this service, and that seems to work okay for other people as well. So my own practice, I encourage everybody to just take up their own practice, and in doing that the world will change and become brighter and lighter.
Yeah, absolutely. So is it possible to visit you at Viveka Hermitage?
Well, it's a private residence. It's not like a monastery where we have any accommodation or anything like that. But what we do is go out to the local Tibetan centre, which is called Kamalashila, just down the road from us, and we often meet people there and do some teachings there, hold some retreats there. Yeah.
Beautiful.
So people do. So it's on our website when we're offering those retreats, and we have a live stream. Myself and I, Jitindriya, who's the other nun here, we hold fairly regularly live stream meditations and Q&A on my YouTube channel. You might have seen that, huh? When you were looking at it.
I
Yeah,
saw
yeah.
that.
So we do that as well. So we're kind of more of an online hermitage.
Very modern.
Yeah, aren't we? Yeah.
Tuned with the present times.
Yeah. Well, you got to go with the times, and you know this YouTube thing really took off during COVID, as you can imagine, and people really appreciated it during those times. So I was in the monastery in the Southern Highlands, and we were in lockdown. So I was really just focusing on reading Dharma and listening to Dharma and practicing, and was able to generate a lot of these recordings during COVID. So that's why there's so many videos up there, audios up there, audio videos. Yeah.
Lovely. Okay.
Mm.
Thank you so much for accepting
You're
this
welcome.
interview from the Women Awakening Project, bringing your
Yeah.
voice. And for who hasn't yet listened to her video guided meditations and so on, the YouTube channel is Wisdom of Masters. Anyway, you will find the link below.
Yeah, there's
And-
also podcast platforms if people don't like going on YouTube, which is understandable. So, you know, like on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Someone
Yeah.
asked me to put them up there.
Yeah.
So that's another outlet if people prefer a more quiet space.
Yeah. And how do they find it?
Well, I've got all the links on my channel from the homepage.
Okay.
Yeah, but equally, it's on our Viveka Hermitage website, all the links to the podcast platforms as well. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So I wish you all the best with your project, Erica. It sounds really
Yes.
interesting and inspiring. And as I said, it'd be really fascinating to hear what you discover, or rediscover about the feminine power in spirituality. And yeah, bring it on, sister. Good for you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah. All right. Well, you take care over there.
Yeah, you too. You
Okay. Ciao.
too. Ciao.
Ciao.